for parents and teachers. So as I say, it's not very academical. Sexual abuse is to understand anything further. Now, child sexual abuse is not only rape. It consists of three parts, three elements. The first one is non-contact child sexual abuse, and that will be things like pornography, child pornography, teasing a child with their body or their sexual development, flashing. So you understand what that is. Then contact, non-penetrating child sexual abuse is when the child is touched, but say over the buttocks or over the clothes or any inappropriate touch. And here I just want to ask to emphasize that people tend to say that once or teach children that nobody should touch you and wear their swimsuits cover. And that is simply not enough. I was a child, when I was a child, a teenager, we grew up in this area where we kissed for everything. We had to kiss hello, we had to kiss goodbye, we had to kiss congratulations, we had to kiss sorry, and so we kissed the whole day long. And a very, very good friend of my parents and somebody that I had huge respect for, while my parents were present, he kissed me on the mouth and he stuck his tongue into my mouth. Now that is contact, non-penetrating child sexual abuse. Although the mouth was penetrated, it wasn't, at that stage, it wasn't, it would probably have been what we said in that days indecent assault. And then the last element is penetrative sexual abuse. Now, non-contact child sexual abuse happens much more than contact, non-penetrating child sexual abuse, which happens much more than penetrative child sexual abuse. And we need, to understand that, to understand the prevalence of child sexual abuse in South Africa. Okay, now other specific types of child sexual abuse, and we see it more than you would think, is trafficking with children, trafficking, exploitation, blessers and blessees. That is where an older gentleman with more money has a sexual relationship with a younger person. By the way, I see that there's a spelling mistake. Has a sexual relationship with a younger person. He gets the benefit of the sexual activity, and the blessee gets the benefit of the being cared for financially. Then, of course, internet offenses, which is huge nowadays. And we just need to know that we can have victimization where more than one type of abuse is present at the same time. Say, like physical abuse along with sexual abuse, emotional abuse along with physical abuse or sexual abuse, or neglect and emotional abuse and physical abuse. So are certain types of child sexual abuse less serious than others? No. Although a lesser percentage of child sexual abuse involves contact, and even less involves penetration, all types of sexual abuse have serious long-term emotional consequences. And when I say emotional, I also refer here to disruption of the family relationships. Now, this is a very important slide. In South Africa, we have a legal obligation to report child sexual abuse. Now, everybody who has knowledge of child sexual abuse must immediately report it to the police. The suspicion, the reasonable belief, or the knowledge of the sexual abuse of a mentally incapable person must immediately be reported to the police. And when you are in doubt of whether to report or not, phone Childline. And Childline's number nowadays is 116. Now, social workers might tell you, I don't know whether we have a social worker on the group, but they may say that you must report child sexual abuse to a social worker. It is not that you may not report it to a social worker. It is just that you should not only report to a social worker. Social workers has a very important role to play in the whole management of child sexual abuse, because they must help keep the register of sex offenders in. They must keep that up to date, and they need to care for the safety of the children. So, but please report to the police. If you do not report, it is an offence. It is an offence, and you may actually be fined or imprisoned for not more than 5 years. So this is a very, very serious issue, and you will, every now and then you will see that a mother or somebody is accused of not informing the authorities of sexual abuse of children or abuse of children. So if you do not report, it is an offence. If you do report and it cannot be proven that this child has been sexually abused or specifically sexually abused, but also the physical abuse, nothing may happen to you. You're not liable civilly or criminally if you report it in good faith. The previous slide, sorry, I have that. We must just remember that the best interest of children is a fundamental right of children. And all decisions are taken in the best interest of the child. But you may not decide that it is not in the best interest of the child to report to the police. That decision will be made further in the process by the prosecutor. Okay, now what makes children vulnerable? Children are, of course, by nature vulnerable to persons in power, and adults are persons in power. A stressful home environment, any mental or physical impairment make them more vulnerable. Children who are needy, either materially or emotionally, when there's poor communication in the house, and when they do not understand their boundaries, they may be victims of emotional and physical abuse, and prior sexual abuse also makes children more vulnerable. One also need to think of unregulated screen time. So this is a diagram that I got from the internet, and also I will need you reading. There you are. Okay. So what you see here is the relationship of the alleged perpetrators to the victims. Now, I hope you can see my cursor here. If you start there at the blue, the biological mother, biological father, stepfather, paramour of the mother, paramour of the father, female sibling, male step sibling, other relative, and a known non-relative. Can you see where we are? At 97%. And all those are known to the children. Then we get to the unknown. Unknown does not mean that they are unknown to the children. It means that we do not know whether they are known or not known, whether they are, whether children know them or whether they're strangers. So a part of that 2% is also known to the children. And then 1% is strangers. Now, this, for the parents, if you have parents in the group, teachers in the group, you must realize that when we think of child sexual abuse, and most people, when they prepare, when they try to protect their children against child sexual abuse, they say, do not get into a car with strange people. And can you see that getting in a car with strange people is that small area? And people forget to talk to their children about more general, anything that makes them uncomfortable, any person that may abuse them or act inappropriately with them. Now we need to know why I have this is that all pedophiles do not molest children, and all child molesters are not pedophiles. A pedophile, per definition, is an adult who are preferentially or solely sexually attracted to prepubescent children, and then you get the hebephiles who are attracted to adolescents that have entered the puberty, usually between 11 and 14 years old, but it can, of course, go later. So we will later look, maybe I must just go a little bit back to this slide. So these are pedophiles. They want children. They want sexual gratification from children. They may or may not act on this. They may, for instance, get their sexual gratification for adults who, with an appearance that they are not sexually mature. Or they may masturbate, or they may masturbate looking at pornography or something. And we will, the other group will be, these are the preferential child sexual abuse perpetrators. And then we'll also learn about the situational perpetrators who are not pedophiles. Okay, now the process of abuse goes through 4 stages. It's the desire, which can vary according to pattern and the process of abuse that they plan or that they would like. This may be because of this may be pedophilia, and it also they may want rape, they may desire rape, but they do not act on it at this stage. Now, then the second phase is that they overcome the internal inhibitions. This usually happens when there are drugs or alcohol involved. And now they overcome these moral beliefs and practices of them. There are interpersonal variations, but as I say, it is now one or other disinhibiting practices that happens, and there is usually alcohol or drugs. Now, then the next stage is that they overcome the external inhibitions. Now they have decided, I am going to act on my desire. The overcome internal desire was, I want to. I'm not going to at this stage. The internal inhibitions is, it's not so bad. I can now, I can now sort of motivate that I should, that I may have access to the children. And then they overcome the external inhibitions. Now here is where you can intervene in this whole process. Because those children, where they overcome the external inhibitions, they are now going to isolate this child. So and this is where we can protect our children, where we are going to prevent that they are isolated. There are safety in numbers. Now here they may either groom the child, So that is more seduction, or they might force the child. And that is in the fourth, where they overcome the child. Now, this phase is facilitated by a power imbalance. There is a social worker with the name of Fuller. Her definition of child sexual abuse is sexual activity with children when there is an imbalance of power. And the imbalance of power may be the size of the person, the social power of the children, emotional power, intellectual power. Any of those is can overpower the children. Now, when they use this power, they can either coerce the children with threats or with force, or they can manipulate the children by grooming, and then, of course, bribery and seduction. Okay. Now we have to look at what makes a perpetrator tick. Now, fortunately, 80 to 90, well, this is very a relative statement that I make here, but about 80 to 90% of perpetrators want power. They want control over the children. They want to go back to the children. I'm just going to go back to this slide, All these, this whole spectrum here, are known to the children. So what's going to happen if they hurt the children? The child's going to tell, and then the child is going to be believed. So they must act in a way that the child either doesn't tell, or that if the child tells, that the child is not believed. That small part, they don't mind whether the child tells or not, because they are not known to the family of the child. So they may not be caught out. But if this group, if they hurt the child in any way, emotionally, in a way that the child decides that this must stop, then they're going to be caught out. So what do I say here? Okay, I say that 80 to 90% of perpetrators of child sexual abuse will not hurt children. They will not hurt children physically. The anger perpetrator is another story. They are usually angry at another person, for instance, the mother or a wife or a sister, and then they might project their anger to the children. And then the sadistic perpetrator, that is bad news, because they get their gratification from the suffering of others. But as I say, this is only the anger and the sadistic perpetrators, they are 10 to 15%, and those are what we really read of in the papers. Those are the group that we see on the news, and we don't very seldom, we can, but this group doesn't get as much attention. So what is sexual grooming? Sexual grooming is usually the preferential abuser, but not only the preferential, also the situational abuser. They need access to children, and so they break down the barriers. They weaken the boundaries of children, and they desensitize children, because they want to prevent the children to disclose the abuse, and if the children disclose, that they are not believed. Now, the other group of sexual abuse perpetrators that one not, you know, that one doesn't always think about or realize, is that 40% of sexual abusers are juvenile. 7 out of 8 juvenile offenders are at least 12 years old, and 93% of these are boys. Now, this is actually a very difficult situation. When we have children that abuse other children, we mostly have 2 victims. So confidentiality in this instance is very important, and it is very, very difficult to keep this confidential. We need to know a little bit about the Child Justice Act, and that is, remember that everything must be in the best interest of the child. So the Child Justice Act, in a way, protects the perpetrators. And if they feel that they can be rehabilitated, or that they can actually learn from this whole experience, then they go into a diversion program where the children are, I'm going to say that they go into a psychological treatment rehabilitation program. Now, why would children abuse other children? And if you now look at these, you'll see that most of, well, they can be rehabilitated, if we want to say rehabilitation, rehabilitated, because it may be sexual curiosity and the lack of proper education and the lack of guidance of healthy sexual behaviors. They may act out in response to physical abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse of their own. And that is why I say we have 2 victims. And they may use sexual abuse as a form of bullying, or sexual abuse can be used as a prank or a form of hassling of other children. Now, caregivers have a very, very important function in the resilience of children. From the very, very early days, caregivers play a significant role in the sexual messaging that children will experience from infancy. They may give positive and negative messages, and that is when they start with, while the child is still in nappies, the small baby, if they have an erection or if they touch their genitals, what are they going to do? Are you going to suck their hands, scold them, make negative remarks, or are you going to show with your body language that this is not acceptable? Or are you going to accept that this is normal, soothing behavior and that it is healthy? It is onderzoekend, all right? I will get the word later on. So these children need to get to know their own bodies, and they will get to know their own bodies by touching them. They will touch their genitalia, they will touch their hands, they will touch your hand, they will put their hands in their mouth. This is explorative, that's the word. They are only exploring. Dirty jokes is not a good message to send to children. Then there are persons that, many of them that avoids the subject because they want to keep their children innocent. You can't keep your children innocent. Then children must learn that there must be respect between family members, and they mustn't be told to respect other people, and they mustn't be beaten to learn this. This is how you should learn to respect people. They should be shown how to respect people by being respected. If you wait too long to give the information, such as when they ask, they heard somewhere else. And you don't know what they heard, and you don't know how it came over. So you need ongoing communication from birth into puberty and further, and you need to keep these communication channels open. We will do a little bit about that later. So when are you going to expect that there may be child sexual abuse going on? Now, the red light number 1, and this is the most important, this is what I use when I need to examine the children, is to assess children, is disclosure. If a child says somebody acted inappropriately with me, then you must believe that child. Young children do not lie, they do not exaggerate. A child up to 7 years cannot tell elaborate lies. They will, if they do not give the correct information, they will rather leave out information than adding information. And they may also, if they don't feel safe where they are disclosing, they may retract and say, okay, but I lied. If they think about the repercussions, if they think that there's not confidentiality in this area, if they are scared that they won't be believed, they may retract. Now, what are we looking for when we listen to these children who disclose? We look for, we make sure that we understand what they say. We use the names that they use for body parts. If they say, I know that the Sesotho and the Setswana children in Bloemfontein where I work, they tend to say that somebody did something bad to me or somebody did something funny to me. Now, you cannot accept or assume that something funny is a sexual activity, or that something bad is sexual activity. You must ask them, tell me what the something bad is. But having said that, be very, very careful. Or if you are not educated, trained in how to take a history or to ask the children without contaminating the interest of their evidence, rather not to do it. It is better to simply let the child tell and narrate and not answer questions on detail. Now, when the child, you may find that the children, their stories may change. That is just because of the memory and the way that children recall their experiences. So the peripheral details may change, but the core will stay the same. When they reach their later, the prepubertal and the pubertal years, then they may lie. Then they may use a false disclosure as a weapon. It's not often, but it may happen. I just want to, I don't know where that slide of mine is, but I want to go back to that where I gave you the nature of child sexual abuse, of the non-contact, contact, and penetrating. If you use that definition, then 1 out of every 3 children in South Africa are sexually abused. So sexual abuse actually happens in the same area of prevalence than tonsillitis. And we know how much attention tonsillitis gets, and we also know how little attention child sexual abuse gets, because we do not search for it. So when the red light number 2 is trust your instincts. If you feel uneasy about leaving a child with someone, do not do it. What we tend to say to children, I know that when I was a child, what happened is if we were left with somebody else, our parents would say, listen to this uncle or auntie, and if she doesn't listen to you, then you can spank her. Okay, so what am I going to do if I'm a little child and my mother tells me that I must do what this guy or lady wants? Right, the other red light may be physical signs, but this very, very seldom happens, because remember that I said that the children, 90% of child sexual abusers will not hurt children. So they will probably not cause signs of trauma to the genital area. There may be unexplained bleeding, bruising, or blood on the sheets, underwear, or other clothing, but remember there may be other explanations for this. They may have pain during urination or defecation, but there are other reasons for that as well. They may have recurrent bladder infections, they may have genital discharges or ulcers, or they may have unexplained health problems, such as stomach aches and headaches. Okay, now sudden behavioral changes. They may talk excessively of or show knowledge of sexual topics. They may start keeping secrets or not talking as much as usual. They may not want to be left alone with certain people, or they may be afraid to be aware from parents and caregivers. Now, when we look at disclosure, this may be the first step of disclosure. With not wanting to be left alone with certain people may be a sign that they have a that they actually want to tell. They want this to stop. Okay, then resuming behaviors such as thumb sucking, regression, when they're overly compliant, inappropriate sexual behavior, but you have to distinguish that from normal sexual behavior. They may withdraw and they may show self-harming behaviors. Now there may be changes in eating habits. They may try to avoid removing their clothing or change or to bathe. They may have nightmares or other sleep problems without an explanation. Remember, this is sudden behavioral changes. They may seem distracted or distant, and then they may leave clues that seem likely to provoke a discussion about sexual issues. They may, if there's wetting or soiling unrelated to potty training, so these are the children who have been potty trained and now suddenly they wet themselves. And then if they exhibit adult-like sexual behaviors, language, and knowledge. Emotional signs, changes in mood or personality, such as increased aggression. Remember that we also said that they more aggression, or if they get more compliant, both sides. Decrease in confidence or self-image, excessive worry or fearfulness, loss or decrease in interest in school activities or friends, or sudden increase in school performance. That is a way to get away from, focus on something else. Nightmares, and then sudden mood swings. But now remember that everything that I said up to now is not diagnostic. The most diagnostic of all this is when they disclose. That is the most important of all these lists of what I gave you. So do not jump to conclusions. If you have a constellation of symptoms, then you will be more concerned, but rather give over to the professionals. They know the professionals work in a team, and they do this every day. This is what they are trained to do. And it is better that the caregivers stay and keep to what they can do best, is loving the child. So what is abnormal? We can go through a list of normal sexuality, and I can give you something on that if you really want it. But I just want to give a quick overview of what is abnormal. Masturbation is normal at all stages. It is soothing behavior with smaller children. It is explorative behavior, and only later will it have a sexual connotation. Be worried if it interferes with the child's social, emotional, or cognitive development. So when this is compulsive, when it's compulsive behavior, be careful. Let somebody look. If it occurs at a high frequency, if it's associated with emotional distress, if there is force or coercion, or of course, an imbalance of power here, if somebody gets hurt. And now also remember that behavior that may be seemingly homosexual may occur in the teenage years, and it's not necessarily homosexual behavior or that this child is homosexual. So one has to be very, very sensitive with what we think is sexualized behavior in children. Now, a little bit about disclosure. I emphasize that what the child tells is the most important part of the evaluation overall. The police don't, I think that they look more at the rest of this picture of the crime scenes and the bystanders and so, but they also take a statement. Now, what we're looking for is clarity. We said that, and detail. So, and consistency. So what one does, if one takes I talk about a medical history, I do not talk about a forensic interview, is we make sure that you know what the child means. You start with a wide open question like, is there something you want to tell me? Is there something, do you tell me about something that happened? Did something bad happen to you? How do you feel? So it's wide open. You do not give the child a clue of what you think that he may say. Now, if the child says, yes, I want to tell you something, then you have one word to work with, and that is yes. So now you can say, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. Now, say the child now says, but somebody hurt me. Then you have two words. You have yes and you have hurt. And you can now work, now you can go a little bit deeper into hurt. Who hurt you? How did he or she hurt you? What did he do or she do when he hurt you? Who hurt you? And then you can use the next word of the children to ask the next question. You may not use a word that the child didn't use first. Now, children will only disclose in, you see, that is why I say do not ask too much, because it may be that you just phrase your question wrongly. Children will only disclose in a safe space. If they feel that it's not safe, then they will clam up, mostly forever. Now, it may be that children are told what to say, and this is a very difficult situation to handle. And it often happens with parents are separated. Now, if a parent tells a child what to say, and it does happen, then of course the child, remember, children must do what adults say. So then they might come and they might tell what was said to be told. But then when we ask these questions, They're now going to tell us, it's an open question, what happened to you, and they're going to tell you. But then the experienced member of this team will now start and ask, okay, what happened? Where did it happen? Who made it happen? And what did you feel when it happened? How did you feel inside? How did your body feel at the time? And the person who tells a child what to say cannot anticipate this amount of detail that will be explored. Now, the process of disclosure, I named this a process because it's not an event. A child does not come to you and say, okay, that my cousin touched my cookie. We were in the bathroom and we were in the sitting room, and it was sore, and they won't do that. They will start with a little information like, I do not like my cousin. I don't want to go to my cousin. And then this will grow. It's an incremental process. And the disclosure is almost always delayed. Remember that these children are threatened, or they manipulated in one or other way. So they may take days to weeks to years, and many never discloses. I think about 16% of children disclose while they're children. And they will only disclose, of course, in a safe space. So what should you do when you suspect child? Should show, what should make you see red lights? Now, what will you do? With a child, you must believe the child unconditionally. Do not question unless you have knowledge of the protocols. You may ask the child, tell me what, but don't go further. Let the child talk because narration is healthy, but don't probe. You may ask the child, tell me more, and then how do you feel? But please do not try to look for confirmation of abuse unless you have specialized training in the physical assessment of children who may have been sexually abused, and you know what to look for. I have come across allegations that a police officer, a woman, tried to look at the child's genitals as whether she, to see whether she was abused. It also happens with at nurseries or childcare centers, playgroups. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, what must you do if you think that there's child sexual abuse? You must immediately report to the police. You must report the knowledge of sexual abuse of a normal child, but remember this is a child up to 18 years, to a forensic social worker, or I have something wrong here, or to SAPS, but it's knowledge of sexual abuse, so it must be immediately reported to SAPS. You may report to a social worker as well. And if it is a mentally disabled child, you must, even the suspicion, much more than the knowledge, must immediately report it to the police. So what should you not do? Do not move outside the official system. You have the right to keep track. They must inform you of what is happening with the investigation. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to complain. Do not be aggressive and do not try to manipulate the system. Even if you don't, the system may seem slow, but the system is instituted to manage this kind of problem. And then please do not try to prove in any way that the offence took place, and do not try to influence the opening of a case, the verdict or the punishment. People tend to, I have had specifically one case where do-gooders brought in a person, it was an adult, and then they made a huge thing about the nurse not examining the patient correctly, about the nurse not taking the right evidence. I mean, that is a nurse's prerogative, because she knows what to do, when to do, and what to leave. Do not confront the abuser. Do not take the law into your own hands. Fathers want to beat up or murder people when they think that they abuse their daughters, and I can understand that, but that is not for the father to do. That is for the system. The person should be removed from the victim, and that is usually done by the police and social workers. Whether the victim is now removed from a child or the child is taken out of the abusive situation. With young perpetrators, do not confront the parents of the perpetrator. They are going through their own pain and their own grieving process. They also need to support their child. Now, although this child may have committed an offense, he is still a child, and he may be able to learn with the correct guidance from this mistake. The child may have committed an offense, so the system will try to minimize the damage. And remember that the youth perpetrator mostly is also a victim. Now, what should the parent or the teacher do? They must do what they do best. They must love the child. They must support the child. They must treat them normally. And then they should get knowledge to prepare the child for the different processes. Before the child goes to the police, ask what is going to happen there and prepare the child. And self-care, and this I often saw, that the parent is so stressed that they can really not support the child. And they want to do everything for the child and to forget about themselves. So we need to help the parents to practice self-care. Let them have trauma counseling, let them have psychotherapy, and nurture the support system of the child and the parent. So support the family, understand the grieving process of the child and the family, and also of yourself. To work with sexually abused children is taxing. And you have to, when you work with these children, well, either once or continuously, you have to look inside, to do introspection and to make sure that you stay healthy. Remember that there will be denial, anger, depression, you know, the grieving, the grievance process, grieving. And when people want to take their law into their own hands, please don't let that happen. It's often the father wants to, as I say, beat up the child. You know how they can be, or how the Y chromosome works. So the mother should try her best to prevent that. Now, do I have a choice? If you now think, or if the mother says, I do not want this to go to court because it will tear our family apart, it won't be good for the child, I can't do it. Unfortunately, they do not have a choice. They cannot prevent these cases of being reported. The everything should be done in the best interest of the child, but you cannot decide about what is in the best interest of the child. When the child when this case goes to the prosecutor, they are going to look into the best interest of the child, and they may, even if they have good a prima facie, if they think that they have proof that this child has been abused and they think that it will not be good for the child, then they will not prosecute. Prosecution is not a child's business. Prosecution is adult play. Children just want to be happy, they want to play, and they want to laugh. Now, we said that failure to report immediately to the police is an offense. And the officials are specialized, and they will act in the best interest of the individual children. Now, who manages the investigation of the cases? The system has a team approach. The police is one member of the team, then social services, the medical service, and the justice system. The police is responsible for the safety of the child. They will do the investigation. They liaise between the other team members, and of course they will arrest the person. They also provide transport for the victims, but these are not the most I won't say the most important, but these are some of the functions. Social services actually has two legs. The one is to give social support. They will look at the safety of the child, and they will provide services to the family. They will try to reconstruct the family support system. They will give counseling, and they will give therapy. Now, of course, the therapy can also be done by a psychologist. Now, then the other leg of social services is the forensic part. A forensic social worker will assess this child through play therapy. They will do a few sessions with the child, and then they will go testify in the court. And they may also manage their diversion program. Now, the same social worker may not treat and do the forensic assessment. They may only do one of these two. Now, the medical service, and that's of course where I fit in, is that we should provide a holistic care. It's not that the child will come in and we say, lie on your back and I'm going to look, okay? We must make sure that the child is emotionally and physically healthy, and if not, to treat or refer. Then, from a forensic side, we will do a forensic examination and the collection of forensic evidence in the acute cases. We will write a report for court purposes, and then, of course, we'll go testify. Now, people sometimes think that private practitioners may not do forensic work, but they can, and it is so good if they can do these kind of examinations, because the children know them and they trust them. Now, then the justice system, they will guide the investigation. They will decide whether there is enough evidence to prosecute, and whether they need to prosecute, or whether it's appropriate to prosecute this specific case. And then they will, of course, also start the diversion program. The other work of the justice system is the defense, and the defense is a very important part of the whole process, because the accused or the suspect must have a fair hearing. Now, the medical assessment, and this is a take-home message, is that the child is more important than the case. If a child does not want to be examined, they are not going to be examined. we may send them back and then let them come back in a week or two, help them, give the parent or the caregiver information on how to prepare the child, what is going to happen. And that is why I say that what to do when you support the child is try to find out what is going to happen the next step. Because what I often see is that the child, the parent brings in the child and they are both stressed. The parent is so scared of not knowing what is going to happen that the child gets upset because of the parent's emotion. So what I say here, the child is more important than the case. Now, you may think that, okay, but why not give the child anesthesia? No. A child might only get anesthesia if it is in his best interest. To give a child anesthesia if there is no health benefit for that child is it's inappropriate. It's irresponsible. Although anesthesia is safe, it is not 100% safe. And if you expose a child to the hazards of anesthesia and something happens, and there was no medical indication, you will never sleep after that. And the thing is that if a child is under anesthesia, a part of the examination will not be, can't be used for the assessment of the child. We do not, for prepubertal children, less than 2% of them, well, actually up to 9 years old, we do not find DNA evidence on a child's body. We may find DNA evidence on nappies or panties or bedding, but not on the body of the child, for reasons that are more medical. So you cannot go, you should not go and do an examination while your indication for that is court case. That is not an indication. That is in the best interest of the child. So what I say is the child is more important than the case. Now, we now again have the non-offending partner. Support the child, both the young offender and the victim. Get information on what to expect. Prepare the child for what will happen next. I will give a few clues. Do not force a child into anything, and the doctor or the nurse should also not force a child. If you force a child, your examination will be, you won't be able to see much because the child should be relaxed for you to be able to assess the body. Never scold the child when they are apprehensive. Do not threaten the child that the doctor will inject them if they do not comply. And do not take siblings with the child into the examination room. It is impossible to examine a child when there is a sibling present. Now, what about the medical assessment? I said it must be holistic, so it must be clinical as well as forensic, which means that you have medical and forensic consent, a medical history and a forensic history, examination of the whole body with special attention to areas of possible forensic evidence, medical investigations and forensic specimens which may overlap, a medical diagnosis and a forensic conclusion, treatment as needed and prevention of complications of sexual contact, and then clinical notes and at the one hand, and the clinical forensic report, and then referral for medical as well as forensic purposes. So for the forensic purposes, what I mean there is we work in a team. So in this stage, I will refer to a social worker. Now, the medical examination, people are often worried that the medical examination is the same as a gynecological examination, which it is not, because this must be in the best interest of the child. So we look from the outside with special positioning and gentle touch. And I repeat that the examination and anesthesia shouldn't be done unless there is a medical problem that should be examined. Now, the other key message is that our examinations are mostly normal. Remember that power perpetrators do not cause injury, and injuries heal, and they heal very well and very fast often without leaving any residual. Now, here, what I have is just to give you an idea of what to expect when this child is medically assessed. The child must be in a child-friendly area, and one will, where's my cursor? Yeah. And one should prepare the child. You should tell her what is going to happen, or him. It can be, of course, a boy or a girl. Boys in South Africa are abused, sexually abused, marginally more than girls. It's also 1 out of 3. Okay, so then the child is going to sit, and we're going to tell her that we're going to look in the ears and the mouth, and we're going to touch the neck, and then we're going to let her lie on her back, and we're going to touch the tummy and listen to the hearts and the lungs, and then we are going to ask her to lie on her back and to put the soles of her feet together like a little frog, so that we can see that whatever she uses, you get the funniest words here, but you use her words. Then we're going to let her stand on her knees so that we can look at the bum and can again look at the genitalia. Sometimes, specific to the boys, we will ask him to lie on their backs, and then we will bring their knees closer to their chest so that we can see the bum. And if they are really scared, they may sit on the mother's lap. And then the mother will hold the legs like that, so that you have the same vision or visual appearance that you will have in that frog leg position. Now, the medical assessment, one has to know that most examinations are normal, and I talk about more than 95% of examinations are normal. When the children come in within 24 to 72 hours, then still about a quarter of them, and with a very, very strong history that there was penetrating sexual contact, then still a quarter of them have normal examinations. So the absence of confirmatory clinical signs does not exclude child sexual abuse, and doctors can very, very seldom diagnose sexual abuse precisely. Now, how are we going to make our children more resilient? How are we going to sway the odds in the favor of our children? Rescuing or helicoptering children robs them from the development of the ability to keep themselves safe. They must practice their safety wings. They must be able, and they must have the opportunity to develop their own resilience. You cannot keep children innocent. They need to have the information. The only control you have is where they get the information, how they get the information, is it age appropriately, which you can do, whether they get the correct information, and what values they get along with the sexual information. to leave the information for the schools without knowing what the child is, what information the child gets, is you don't know whether the family's values are installed. But try, if they have classes at school, then try and get the information what they will have, so that you can, what they will get, so that you can discuss it with your child. Now remember, some people say, okay, I will wait until they ask questions. When they ask questions, they already receive the information from other sources. So that is then too late. You must be the first one who give the information. Now, the information must be given not as a sex talk. It must, or the talk. It must be given through example and through open channels, and through using the teachable moments from birth right through to puberty. They need knowledge of this anatomy. Their sexual organs are not special. It is private, but it's part of their bodies. They must know the anatomy of the male and the female. They must know that the sexual organs are normal parts of the body. It's not dirty. It's not naughty. It may be pleasurable to touch the sexual genitalia. They may touch their bodies in any place, but certain parts should not be touched in public. So you set boundaries. They must know about conception and childbirth. That must be taught to them, or must be conveyed to them age appropriately, as young as 4 years. They must already know about conception and childbirth. 4 years. Okay. Now, you're not going to tell the child, I know that maybe your ears are now standing up. You're not going to tell the child, you know what, we have sex. Let me tell you what we do. Age appropriate for a child of 4 is something like, you know that mama and papa love each other. Nee. You see that sometimes we hug, we love to touch each other, we love to hug. Now, sometimes we give each other a special hug. Now, remember, by now, they must know the anatomy. Sometimes we give each other a special hug. And then your daddy puts his penis into mama's vagina. And your daddy gives baby-making seeds to mama. And the mama has baby-making eggs. Now, when there's the baby-making seed and the baby-making egg come together, then a baby starts. Now, usually these children don't even listen to this. They are much more interested in how the baby develops. I know that my son was he was a little over 2 years old, and I had a little replica of this, the kiss of Rodan, where the man and the woman sit on a, I can't remember what is a stump or something, and kissing each other. And they are stark naked. And you know what my son said? Mama, kyk hulle skaalvoet. You can tell them they will take what they want at that stage, and the rest they will keep until they can understand it and make more sense of it. Okay, so by puberty, and you know, children can become pregnant, girls can become pregnant as young as 12 or younger. When their breasts start to develop, they can become pregnant. So at that stage, they must know everything. They must know about homosexuality, and they must get the value system along with that. They must, as I say, they must know about the possibility of sexual abuse, and their right. What did I do now? Yeah, and their sexual rights. So you must give them language. Language means that they may have a name for sexual organs. I prefer, but I'm a doctor, I come from another side, that you use the word penis, anus, vulva, and vagina, and that they know what it is. You may, as long as they have a name for the sexual organs, it should be okay. But for me, it makes sense that to use names that are also used for other things, you may confuse them. And you must also teach them the appropriate use of the language, because sometimes children use the really offensive slang, because that is what they hear in their house. So why I say rather not confuse them with worteltjies and paddatjies and rosies and snails and eggs and balls and whatever. Rather tell them, give them names that are specifically aimed at the body parts, like penis, scrotum, testes, vulva, genital lips. Private parts is okay. The vagina is the genital sheath. People think that the whole the external genitalia are the vagina, but the vagina, the female genitalia consist of external genitalia and internal genitalia, and the vagina is internal. That is a sheath. It is not what you see if you look at the genitalia. What you see when you look is the vulva. You may tell them about the uterus or the womb, not the tummy or the stomach. Tell them about egg cells, baby making egg cells, baby making seed cells, and teach them about breasts. Now, you must also give them permission. The first permission that they need is to say no. They have, if somebody does something that makes them feel uncomfortable, they may say no. You're not going to say you must listen to this person. You must give them permission to talk about sexuality appropriately with you, because they must have boundaries. You must tell them about body safety, about right and wrong touch, or okay and not okay touches, not good and bad touches, because the touch may feel good even if it is a wrong touch. You must tell them to listen to their instincts. They have the right to forbid others to leave when they feel uncomfortable, and to tell someone when they do something, touch them, talk to them, show them something, or requesting anything that they are making them feel uncomfortable. I don't like what you want me to do, I'm not going to do it. And they may politely refuse to be touched even in non-sexual ways. If a child doesn't want to be hugged, they're not going to be hugged. Don't kiss a child if she doesn't want to, or he doesn't want to be kissed. If they don't want to sit on laps, don't. And they may also say no when another person asks them to touch them. So avoid focusing exclusively on stranger danger. Teach the children to take care of their own private parts, let them bathe themselves, wipe after their bathroom use as soon as they can do it, so they do not have to rely on adults or other children for help. Educate children about the difference between good secrets and bad secrets. Children are often sexually abused by someone they know and trust, who says, "This is our secret because I love you." Now, good secrets must be, it is not really a secret, it is a surprise. So a secret must make somebody happy, and the secret must end. Otherwise, it is not a good secret. Give children plans. show them how to avoid isolation, which is stay in a group. Tell them about danger. Make them little profilers. They should not, they should not trust all people, and tell them who they should ask for help if they are scared. If somebody asks them, if somebody asks them to help them, if somebody invites them to show puppies or something cute to them, if somebody gives them snacks, or if they offer them lifts, those are the stranger danger things, and they must be aware of it. If they are scared, they should rather approach or if they are separated from the parent, must approach persons in uniform. Women, particularly pregnant ladies and women with children, they must scream, they must run away, and they must run to where there are other people, or they must knock on the nearest door. And then, of course, they must know their own telephone number and address. And this, play act these plans. Make plans, tell them, okay, let us see. I want to hurt you. You don't need to say that I want to touch your cookie. Maybe if you want to that, you can do that if you think it's appropriate. But say you are scared of me. What are you going to do? Say you're in the park, or say you're in the shop and you don't know where I am. What are you going to do? And then you play at that and make it a teachable moment. Tell them how to say no. Tell them that no means no. They may say that I do not like, or can we rather? Or they may also say, when something makes my hands sweat, I do not do it, and I tell. I don't keep secrets which do not end. They will come in with a lot of more plans. I don't want to be alone with you. Can we ask my mom to be here? I will ask my mom to leave me with somebody else. No, thank you. What you're showing me is wrong. And they must also show this type of respect to other people. So there you are. They must be able to give consent even for just a little hug. Early warning signs. You must discuss with children how they feel when they feel uncomfortable. Some people will say that their neck hair stands on ends. Others will say that my heart beats fast. I have a lump in the throat. I just feel scared. I don't know why. I have a lump on my tummy. I want to go pee. My knees feel weak. My hands are sweating. There are a lot of these early warning signs. You must tell them about good fear and bad fear. Good fear is when I want to jump from the diving board into the swimming pool, and I'm a bit scared because it's very high. But it will actually be, I will enjoy it if I can do it. And then there are bad fear because I'm scared that somebody will hurt me. Okay, secrecy, tell them about secrets and surprises. Secrets should end and should make people happy, and they should trust themselves. Then it is a good idea to teach them about a helping hand network. For each finger of their hand, they must have somebody who can help them, who will help them, who will believe them, and who knows, if it's known people, who knows that they are one of these helping fingers person. So that when a child, then you also teach them to keep on trying. If somebody, to persevere, that's the word, to persevere. If dad is not available, or if dad is busy and dad can't listen now, go to the next one. And the children will decide who they want on their in their network. Okay. Then discipline. Children, discipline for children, they need long-term goals. You need long-term goals, not short-term changing behavior. Yes, the discipline must be structured to change vulnerability to resilience. One must monitor children's access to online websites, and there must be healthy boundaries. Provide a safe, caring environment so children will feel able to talk freely about sexual abuse, and talks so that children will listen, and listen so that children will talk. One wants for your children strong perceptions of personal capabilities. I can. Strong perceptions of significance. I have worth. Strong perceptions of personal influence over life. I can change most of the things that bothers me in my life. Strong intrapersonal skills. I trust myself. I know my emotions. I understand myself. I know my weaknesses and I know my strengths. Strong interpersonal skills. I can work in a team. Strong systemic skills. I can do things. And strong judgmental skills. Some things are right, some things are wrong. I don't need rules and regulations and laws. I know what is right and what is not right. The need of children, they need to belong and they need significance. They need to trust and not distrust. They need autonomy, and if they do not have autonomy, they will have shame. They need initiative. I can do things and I may do things and not feel guilty. And in industry, I can and I will try. I am not inferior. We're almost there. So you must cultivate self-reliance through positive discipline. They must learn respect for the self. They must belonging in significance. They must have healthy boundaries. They must be assertive. I can say no. They must know that mistakes are opportunities to learn from. Mistakes are not necessarily a bad thing. You must understand the world of your children. And you must also understand the messages that the child sends through misbehavior. Because misbehavior is a message of discouragement. Discipline without punishment. You need to encourage people, children. Your discipline must be non-violent, non-yelling, non-name calling, non-labeling, non-guilt, non-shame. You must have respect for your children's evolving capacities. They must help to solve problems. Respect for the child individuality, and engage of children's participation, work with the children, discuss stuff with children. They can bear great responsibility if you give them the opportunity, and respect their dignity. I will never forget a hiding that I had, and I can remember how humiliated I was with that. And hidings, physical punishment it does not convey dignity.
Thank you, Marianne. There's so much to it. It's a much bigger topic than I think we all realize. And I really appreciate your time and sharing all your knowledge. It